Okay, thank you for having me, guys. The title of this presentation is a line taken from the song "Truth Hurts" by Lizzo, an artist named Lizzo. So now Lizzo asks a very powerful question in this song. Why man great till they gotta be great? What I'm going to get into at this time is the very essence of what beckons this very legitimate question from her. What Lizzo was pointing out is that man is great at talking the talk. However, he fails when it's time to walk the walk. So why does man fail at walking the walk? I'm going to answer this question. So strap yourself in and let's get to it. The answer to this question begins in Genesis 1:28, where God gave Adam, being man, dominion over all things on the planet, where it says, and I quote, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Adam did all those things, establishing his dominion, but even he failed when his dominion was out to the test, put out to the test. So in Genesis 2:17, Adam was told not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, where it says, and I quote, "But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die." Now, Adam stuck to this command like super glue, which kept him in good graces. He didn't allow the serpent to talk him into doing something that directly opposed God. But then his time to be great presented itself and he failed. Adam was told directly by God about this tree, and in turn, Adam was supposed to instruct Eve not to eat of the same tree. Eve, whether operating from not being told this message or not being told in a way that she could understand, got sucked into eating from the tree that God said not to eat from. And the rest, as they say, is history. We all know the story from there. But you may be asking, what does this have to do with man being great today? Being great has everything to do with the great things that you do or have done, these things that you so proudly spoke to your woman about that is verified by the receipts that they possess. No receipts, no love. No receipts, no woman. This is the mantra that women fail to make men live by. This is why they end up in the situations that they might end up in, and that's why this prompts Lizzo to ask that question. But according to Lizzo, when it's time for her to be led through a difficult situation, her man fails. He fails to live up to his talk, this same talk that led him into her underwear with the first class ticket. So, what does a man need to be great when he got to be great? I'm going to talk about 15 principles that a great man should be living by. Sure, there may be hundreds of principles, hundreds and hundreds of principles that a man could be living by. But I'm going to go by the principles as they pertain to me. In short, principle number one, males are born while men are forged. Every boy is inherently a male, but every male doesn't become forged into a man. You have a lot of grown men playing boy games. This forging comes from experiences in life, real time experiences. These experiences cannot come from movies, television, and music, although these avenues could be a good guide, but you have to do the work yourself. Principle number two, a man is responsible for all of his choices. A man doesn't blame his circumstances or his parents or his lack of a parent, his socioeconomic conditions, his skin color, or the luck of the draw. A man makes his decisions and he stands on them for better or for worse. Principle number three, the only constant in a man's world is change. Therefore, a man needs to not only accept change, but he needs to also be able to adapt to change. We hear a lot of talk about IQ and EQ, which stands for your intelligence and your emotional quotients. But no one hardly ever talks about your adaptability quotient, your AQ. This gets lost in the shuffle. Work on this. The more experience that you encounter, the better you are able to face change. Principle number 4, every man is of infinite worth. Men are in infinitely valuable from the moment of conception onwards, and that they are created with the dignity given to them by their creator. This is how we honor God's creation. Further cementing this point is that every human being originates from a lucky sperm that made that successful journey to an egg. And in case you're confused, sperm comes from a man. So this should lead you to understanding your infinite worth. You feel the planet. You know, principle number 5, a man has the courage to do what is necessary. This is where Malcolm X, you know, came with his infinite statement, by any means necessary. You need to have courage to be a man, to face setbacks, to get knocked down. It is this courage that gives you the strength to get back up from a knockdown. And we see Muhammad Ali exhibit that several times. This is why he's known as the greatest when it comes to the pugilistic sport of boxing. You know, principle 6, a man is dedicated to continuous learning. Learning in the sense of higher education, learning in the sense of seeking wise counsel, learning from the standpoint that all things in life are an on the job experience, including parenthood, husbandhood, career choices, etc. So be dedicated to continuous learning. Principle 7, manhood demands a courageous self honesty. Know who you are at your very core. If you rob banks, then rob banks. If you don't like reading, then don't read. If all you can do is fight, then head to the boxing ring in the squared circle of the MMA and go eat. Revelations 3:15 and 16 states, and I quote, I know your works. I know that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. This means pick a side and live with it. This and the best way to be able to pick a side and be able to live with it, this comes from courageous and self-honesty. You have to be able to look at yourself and be able to live with that. Principle 8, a man shapes his world. You are the center of your world, for better or for worse. Stand by your word and live in that. Some people may ask, the center of the universe. I remember seeing a show on television that showed the center of the universe being in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You are the center of the universe. Wherever you are, that's where the center of the universe is. Act like that and be ready to accept that. Number 9, a man predicts his future by creating it. Again, the works that you put in, the things that you choose to do, this is what creates your world. So when you're out here gathering these receipts, you'll notice that your world is creating. And if you're allowing things that to keep you pulled back into, there's an old saying in a movie, I think I seen it on The Sopranos, where it's like, every time I try to go and make the change, they keep pulling me. Every time I try to get out, they keep pulling me back in. Well, that's what's supposed to happen. The little boy in you, the boyhood games are supposed to fight to stay alive, and that the boyhood tries to keep you and pull you back from stepping off into manhood. Principle number 10, a man accepts that to live is to be challenged. You have to understand that life's going to be full of challenges. Who said you were going to be riding around with the smooth ride of a Lincoln Town Car all day, every day in your life? Life experiences present challenges. Our children present challenges. Inflation presents challenges. And most importantly, your woman presents challenges. And she's supposed to challenge you. Otherwise, you end up like Adam and Eve in the garden. A man know that challenges are to be expected, and he stands ready to accept them as they come with no excuses. Principle number 11, a man never stands alone unless he's making a stand. In other words, a man has a team that he's formed, a team of family members, confidants, or mentors. These team members that he's formed are directly aligned with his principles. Otherwise, they couldn't be on the team. Principle number 12, a man knows when to humbly face his errors. By knowing thyself, a man faces his errors, knowing that life is built by on-the-job experiences. He knows that mistakes will be made, yet he's fully prepared to learn from them. Check, you know, chalk it up and keep it moving. It is what it is. Principle number 13. A man keeps on trying until he gets it right. This ties back to having the courage to do what's necessary, as well as humbly facing your errors. Get in the game, make mistakes. A man should be turned on by these opportunities to make mistakes. They say the old saying goes that you have to be in it to win it. If you're not in it, then you can't win it. I don't play the lottery. I don't play lottery. I don't go buy lottery tickets. I gamble on myself. And so I put money into myself. So therefore, when they're announcing the Powerball, everybody's wanting to hear what the Powerball is. I don't even stop to even worry about that because I don't play the lottery. So I can never win the lottery. I can't ever win the Powerball because I don't play the Powerball. You have to be in it to win it. Principle number 14. A man lives by a set of standards and principles. If you if you didn't get it from the last generation, then start from scratch. Create your own. Good and bad, hot and cold are all in the eyes of the beholder. You have to have a set of principles that you live by. And this is probably why Lizzo, she's probably dealing with men that don't have principles. And so therefore, how can a man be great when he doesn't have any principles that he goes by? you know. And lastly, principle 15, a man submits to an authority beyond himself. This authority could be God, it could be family heirloom lessons. It could be a drive to be great in all that you do, aka Michael Jordan, aka Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, Prince, you name them. You know, it doesn't matter, but you should still have an authority that you fall down to. Something that, if that's, hey, my children having a full belly, then that's what you drop down to your knees for. And that's what you go out here when you walk out the door each and every day. You're out here striving to make sure that your children have that full belly. Whatever that is, whatever that authority that's over and around you, that's an authority that has to be greater than you. And so, you know, in closing, when these principles are incorporated, then Lizzo and many, many women like her can rest assured that the man that she has chosen can be great when he got to be great, according to her. That is the end of my quick presentation. I want to thank you for allowing me the time to deliver this presentation to you. Now I'll take any questions if there are any.
One question, Doc. Okay, when dealing with the youth to make them understand what would be the best approach.
Well, let's ask this. So when let's just say you got a bunch of kids on the playground and somehow the lion got loose from the circus and the lion comes rolling up on that playground, what are the kids going to do? The kids are going to take off and head for safety. And so when you're dealing with kids, according to the scriptures, you're supposed to be firm with children. I mean, it's depending on the age, it's depending on the age. Now, when you talk about children that once they reach the age of responsibility, the age of understanding, typically known as 12, it's time for them to get the cold hard truth. And it's time for you to start preparing them for manhood or for womanhood or whatever. Prior to that, children need love and nurture. I mean, not saying that they don't need love and nurture beyond 12, but children need love and nurture. That's why mom is so powerful during that time. She's in the moment. She listens to them. She knows who their friends are. She's wants to tap into their emotions. That's that love and that nurture. Dad is hardly ever that person right there. And so, but when it's time for the kids to get to the age of responsibility, that's where the duties are turned over to dad. And dad comes in with that structure and comes with that information and starts setting them on a path to the point where they can be successful, where they can survive. And so when you talk about kids, that's how you should approach the kids. If it's below 12, then they should be getting nurture and love. They should allow it to be a kid. And if they're over 12, then they should be given instruction as to whether they want to get it or not. It may not be their time to receive the information, but my job was to give the information, and maybe that information was a seed that was planted planted in them, and maybe 2 or 3 years later, it may be a eureka moment. Voila, okay, I remember that, and then everything starts clicking for them. So that's how I would deal with with children.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Um, was this the 15 principles that you quoted? Was it something you learned throughout your time, or was that instilled in you as as a child growing up?
I would say that I had to learn that stuff. That was a good question, by the way. I would say that I learned that by trial and error. Trial and error. I took things that worked and things that didn't work. And when it comes down to me, the first thing I had to do was know myself, and I had to be able to accept myself. And there are things about me that I have that I put into three categories. Okay, here's some things that I know I need to get rid of. There's no way I can have friendships, relationships with this right here. I need to get rid of that. Then I get rid of it. And then there's another group of things that these are things I may need to get rid of depending on the friends I'm with, or the person, the partner that I choose, whatever woman I choose to be with, that'll determine whether I need to get rid of this or not. And then there's those things that this is me. Take it or leave it. When you come get with me, this is who I am. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, if I rob banks, say then I rob banks, baby. I love you. I want to kick it with you. I want to be with you. But what do you do for that? I rob banks. No, that's what I do. I'm not gonna stop robbing banks. I mean, I give her the opportunity to walk, and if she stays in, then I know I have a winner. And then that's the way it goes. So, when you look at these things so once I understood to know myself, and then as you go along with life, you start learning things and that and studying scriptures and schoolwork, and my dad, my uncle were pretty prominent in my life. My dad's still here today, hanging in there, 81 years old. Thank God for that. So, I've had some and coaches and friends, dads. I've had some pretty powerful male mentors in my life. Mr. Gage right next door, Mr. Baskerville. I've had Mr. Jackson, Coach Jackson. I've had quite a few, and to be able to take some things that I've gotten from them and use them, I consider it a blessing for sure. And that doesn't mean that at the time that they were telling me these things, that those things resonated with me. How can they resonate with me at 15, 14, 16? But as you get older and you start finding yourself in grown man situations, that's when them words come back on you, and Dolby stereo. So yeah, I appreciate that question. I hope I answered that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How do you balance number 8 and number 15? Number 8 about the man shapes his world and you're the center of your universe, and number 15, the the great
Submit to something
God,
greater than you.
God or higher power or even your
Right.
family can
Right.
be. How do you balance that?
There is no balance, because number one, it starts with the authority that's above me. That's going to dictate my world and how the world is shaped. So there is no balance. And so, like you say, principle 15, man, that is a magnificent question. So the authority, submitting to the authority, I have to die to myself. I had to hear the word from God. I have to die to myself. For me, it's God. I have to die to myself and make it about what's going on from there. So once I've surrendered to the authority, then the world gets shaped from there. So, once you shape that world, you start shaping your world without that authority figure, then it's like, man, it's like making sandcastles. I mean, have you seen a sandcastle that was put up a year ago? No, they don't last that long. They come crumbling down. And so when you start creating a world that's outside of the authority, then that world's going to crumble down. Everything that you touch is going to fail. Your relationships are going to fail. Your businesses are going to fail. Everything that you do is going to fail because it was about you. And it wasn't about the authority that's greater than you that had you doing those things.
My biggest question about that would be, uh, many people use God as a control to control people and make them their slave or make them do what they want to or make them do wild and crazy stuff. That's even against the against what their principles are. They can even do all kinds of stuff.
That could be the case, but then you're talking about people that are lost in themselves because you can't manipulate and control someone that's that understands, knows thyself, right, and that they themselves are surrendered to an authority greater than them, whatever that is, even if that's feeding the children. And so, you know, that is a great point. Now, here's the beautiful thing about it is that people respond. I'm going to say women because that's basically what Lizzo. I'm talking about Lizzo and why Lizzo asked the question, "Why man great till they got to be great?" And so when you have receipts, you don't run into those problems. Do you think any of Tom Brady's women could say he's controlling? No. They see the big houses. They see the plane trips all over the place. They see the Bugatti cars, this and that. They're not. They say nothing. The word controlling doesn't even come out of their mouths when it comes to Tom Brady. And so, because Tom Brady has the receipts to the work, he's clearly a man that has surrendered himself to an authority that's greater than him, and then that authority has used him for whatever it's using him for. That's not my lane. I wasn't privy to the conversation that Tom Brady had with that authority figure over him. I wasn't privy to that. So I'm just saying that receipts. Once you gather receipts, you don't have those conversations with people about you're controlling me and you're using this as a form of control. Because when people come around you, if you're great, because again, Lizzo said great. If you're great, then the people that come around you have no choice but to become great. So if they're not becoming great, something's wrong. It's either maybe something's wrong with your program. You check that first, and then secondly, you go and look at that person, and you'll find out that that person probably doesn't really want to put in the work to be great, or that person has way too much stuff going on in their past life that's they don't realize that these are the things that's preventing them from being great. You know, exactly. So and that becomes the issue. So that's a whole different talk right there, but that becomes an issue. Great point.
I have one
Thank
quick
you.
question, Dr. Lee. I believe it was your number six, the rule number six about wise counsel and the like of knowing when to seek and humbling. Uh, that should go both ways. I'm quite sure because there's times where we also have to offer wise counsel. But is there a balance in between the two? In other words, if you're only always seeking and not in a not ever asked to to share wise counsel, is that potentially a negative because you have an overabundance of seeking, if that makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And so basically what that comes down to is sometimes, you have to get to the point where the rubber meets the road. And so if you're a lifetime seeker, and I believe principle number six was a man need to be dedicated to continuous learning, and that is in learning from higher education and seeking wise counsel. So the more wise you become, again, people have no choice but to learn from you, and you're giving this wise counsel. They're seeing this even if it's just in your actions, and if you're giving them something that they can look at and that they can model and they can emulate, even in that sense, because again, when you're looking at seeking and giving, I mean, we all know that those don't have a definitive definition. That's in the eye of the beholder. And so I may think that I'm giving someone something, and they may not be receiving it because they can't receive it in the way that I'm giving it. And so it is up to them. That's why I can't go against someone's free will, and they have to be able to get it how they're going to get it when they're going to get it. And so a lot of times, so it's impossible to, as you seek wise counsel. That's the first part, seeking wise counsel. The second part is acting on this wise counsel. And so once I'm acting on it, these are the actions that come from these. This is what produces the receipts. And from there, people they don't have a choice but to learn from you if they choose to open their eyes and their ears to see and hear.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that it should go kind of in my mind hand in hand.
And they probably should if you're Dr. King, but again, if you're Al Capone, I mean, where's it? There's no where is it written that says it's I should if I'm receiving I have to give. No, there's a lot of we know there's a lot of receivers out there that aren't giving, and there's a lot of givers out there that aren't receiving, and there's that imbalance that comes, and there is that imbalance of what you're saying, and that's perfect. But I always look to the rule book, and I look in the rules and say, where's that written? So if you're Dr. King, yeah, then it's probably imperative that you're giving as well. He probably that probably was something that kept him up late at night as to whether or not the people were receiving the message, and how do I craft my monologue to the point where people can receive the message. That was probably important to him, but probably not so much as to Hitler. He probably didn't really care about what they thought or whatever. Their job was just to give it. So, man, that's a beautiful point, Howie. Beautiful point, Dr. Rapp.
You have one question here, and it's more general. Would you say it is deliberately that the adulthood is like somehow vilified?
It is definitely vilified. That is a great point. I'm glad that you saw that. And especially when you look at the homes today, I'm an 80s kid, man. You look at the homes today, man, the homes are split. And so the adversary knows that you can look throughout war. When you kill the men, you get the fruits, the to the victor goes the spoils. And the spoils have always been the riches, the women, the children. You turn the children into slaves, you take the women and you make them produce children for you, and which more slaves and things of that nature. So you're right. And so when there's been a war on the home, and the number one person you got to get out of the home is the dad. So once you remove dad out the picture, man, then it's a free for all from there. I mean, statistics have shown that when you look at statistics in terms of the worst households that a child can come up in is a single female household. That's DOJ statistics. It has nothing to do with me. So yes, you are absolutely right. So when you look at that, there has been a war on removing the man. There's a war against the traditional nuclear home. They don't want that. And so a lot of people are being fed stuff and empowered with false rhetoric about, I don't need no man to do nothing. I can do this all on my own, except when it comes to changing your oil in your car or changing your tire. Now you need a man then, right? When there's something comes up where you need to take a hammer and some nails and put something in. Oh, now you need a man. So when you look at things in that sense, though, yes, you are absolutely correct. There has been a divide and a division, and the entities that are surviving off of this and thriving off of this, shame on them. But it'll eventually backfire on them, because when you rip up the home, you split up the home, man. That should be the very essence of what everything starts from. As it said, go taking it back to the oldest known book in history that I know of, the Bible. It started from man and woman, and they created and they fill the earth. So it started from there. And somehow it's gotten into the point where telling man he don't need woman, and woman, especially telling woman she don't need man, that she just needs her girls and she's just gonna do whatever. But unfortunately, I have the sperm, and you can't have a child. You cannot have a child without that. Not saying that I don't need the egg. I do need the egg. They go hand in hand, but the egg's not alive. The sperm is alive. And so, I am the creator of life. And if she doesn't want to go on life, then if she wants life, she's going to need me. And so, yes, but there is a definitely appears to be a division and a war on the home. Any more questions? If not, I am going to close this presentation out. I think that's it. And so I appreciate you guys for giving me the opportunity. This presentation will be available soon. And remember, it's titled Why Man Great Till They Gotta Be Great. Thank you, Lizzo, for the inspiration. Appreciate you guys. That's the end of the presentation.